Welcome to the Dinosaur Review for Kids podcast, a show all about reviewing dinosaurs on a scale of 1 to 10 fossils before only the elite terrible lizards make it into the prehistoric cage match. This program is presented by the Stomp Chomp Roar Company and can be heard within all the rock layers across the planet. Grab your dinosaurs and your official scorecard because it's now time to dig for dinosaurs. Here's your Mesozoic host, Dinosaur Ranger Anthony.
Here's a special bulletin from the Stomp Chomp Roar News. Junior paleontologists, dinosaurs have taken over the Central American island of Isla Nublar. Reports say that these terrible lizards are setting up a modern reptilian government and roaring for a president. As of this morning, 2 dinosaurs have emerged as the favorite to be named the first high rex of these prehistoric creatures. Reports also say these 2 dinosaurs have been campaigning all throughout season number 7 of the Dinosaur Review for Kids podcast. Who's going to win this prehistoric election? We'll update you as we know more. Until then, we'll return you to your regularly scheduled programming from the Stomp Chomp Roar Company. Hey there, Dino-O! This is your Walter Cronkite-like broadcaster and host, Dinosaur Ranger Anthony. Are you ready for our 7th prehistoric cage match on the Dinosaur Review for Kids podcast? It's going to be the bee's knees for sure, or maybe even out of sight. Anyways, thank you for joining me for today for another wonderful episode. The Dinosaur Review for Kids podcast and the Stomp Chomp Roar Company are proud to provide a prehistoric arena for this ultimate who would win battle. We have 2 of the 5 major dinosaur families battling it out for the Isla Nublar presidency. In just a moment, the top 2 scoring prehistoric candidates from season number 7 of the Dinosaur Review for Kids podcast will stomp up from their green rooms below and face off one-on-one in a dinosaur championship debate for the ages. Now, over the last 9 episodes of the Dinosaur Review for Kids podcast, I've reviewed a number of dinosaurs and other Mesozoic era genus as we made our way across America during our prehistoric road trip. This season included a stop in Las Vegas to see the Nevada Dromius, a drive on Route 66 with the Postosuchus, a stop in Dallas to meet the Pentaceratops, a stop in Alabama to run with the Appalachiosaurus, a stop in Graceland to sing with the Edmontosaurus, a stop in Kansas to fish for the Tylosaurus, a stop in Colorado to hike with the Diplodocus, a stop in Southern California to wave at the Ichthyovenator, and finally, a stop in Hawaii to watch the Synopterus. During each episode, I gave a prehistoric genus a score of 1 out of 10 stars, aka we call them fossils. 1 fossil for some of the weakest prehistoric creatures, and 10 fossils for some of those strongest prehistoric creatures. Every 10th episode, I take the top 2 scoring dinosaurs from the current season or the previous 9 episodes, and we let them go one-on-one in a prehistoric cage match. This is the ultimate who would win battle. Sorry, Tylosaurus, even with a 9.2, you can't sit here. This battle is for dinosaurs only. But wait! Today we find ourselves with another last-minute change. It appears the top-scoring dinosaur, the 8.7 Diplodocus, has dropped out of the race for the Isla Nublar presidency. Maybe it's because of that pesky Dino Gate, but nonetheless, a new challenger has has risen to face off with the Ichthyovenator, who scored an 8.4. Of course, if the Diplodocus had made it into the battlefield, I might have chosen the double beam lizard. But here we are. In just a moment, the terrible lizards will be formally introduced. Any guesses? Do you remember which dinosaurs had presidential themes during season number 7? Let's get this show started. We interrupt you for this special bulletin from the Stomp Chomp Roar News. Junior paleontologists, reports are in. Both dinosaurs have made it into the arena for today's prehistoric cage match. Today's matchup is between the Nixon-like Ichthyovenator and, drumroll please, the Kennedy-like Pentaceratops. It's a theropod versus a ceratopsian. This is the first for the Dinosaur Review for Kids podcast, and truly a historical who would win combination. It's a dinosaur found in the Southeast Asia country of Laos and a dinosaur found in the state of New Mexico. But today, the battle will take place at the former home of General George Washington, our first president of the United States of America. Also, be sure to follow the link in my podcast description. This link will let you download a map of the Mount Vernon estate so that you can follow along with this dinosaur battle. Now, let's take you straight to the action. Stomp Chomp Roar welcomes you to the 7th Prehistoric Cage Match. Today's debate is between the theropod candidate, the Ichthyovenator, and the ceratopsian candidate, the Pentaceratops. According to the rules set by the candidates themselves, each dinosaur shall make an opening statement of approximately 8 minutes. Wait just a second. This isn't a real debate. Let's turn this up a notch. We want a dinosaur battle. We are live from the Stomp Chomp Roar Science Lab studios. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the Prehistoric Cage Match. It's time for the Heavyweight Dinosauria Championship of the world. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, a fossil score of 7.5, stretching 23 feet long, 15 feet high, and weighing in at 11,000 pounds. From the late Cretaceous period, some 76 million years ago. Fighting out of the San Juan Basin of New Mexico, it's a chasmosaurid ceratopsian. It's the five-horned face. It's the Pentaceratops. Introducing its opponent, fighting out of the red corner, a fossil score of 8.4, stretching 34 feet long, 10 feet high, and weighing in at 4,800 pounds. From the early Cretaceous period, some 125 million years ago. Fighting out of the Gress Superius Formation of Southeast Asia, it's a double-sailed theropod. It's the fish hunter. It's the Ichthyovenator. No disqualifications, no countouts, falls count anywhere. Let's have a fair, clean fight, touch claws or hooves, and back into your corners.
Round 1, fight!
We are here! We finally made it! We are back in the arena. It's time for another ultimate who would win battle. This is where 6 other dinosaur genus have been victorious and named the Dinosauria Champion of the world. Which of these 2 dinosaurs will make history and join the list of prehistoric cage match champions? Let the elections begin for the Isla Nublar presidency. The sound of early morning Cenozoic-era birds can be heard singing in the trees as the sun rises in the eastern sky over the Potomac River. With each passing second, the sunshine makes its way further up the Mount Vernon estate. This property was established in 1674, and Mount Vernon's mansion was built in 1734. This would become the home of the very first dinosaur, President of the United States of America, General George Washington. The current estate sits on 500 acres of land and includes the mansion, multiple gardens, an animal paddock, and all sorts of side houses. The grounds also include a museum and 2 tombs, one of which holds the remains of George and Martha Washington. I stopped here back in 2013, and it was truly my favorite stomp on my Washington, D.C. vacation. The estate is absolutely stunning, and I had chills walking through the old mansion. What's even more wild is George Washington never had a favorite dinosaur, and that's because dinosaurs hadn't been discovered yet. Now back to the action. As the sun continues to rise over the farm, a lone 5-horn-faced Pentaceratops can be seen grazing in the lower gardens. The hefty ceratopsian uses its strong jaw muscles and its 200 cheek teeth to shred all kinds of low-lying vegetation after it cuts it away with its parrot-like beak. This 11,000-pound plant-eating dinosaur ate tons of food each day to sustain its herbivore diet. Back on the shores of the Potomac River, bubbles begin making their way to the surface. At the same time, the current rushes up onto the riverbanks and slowly erodes away the soft sediment. As the motion of the water becomes still, a new theropod dinosaur rises from beneath the waters near the wharf. This is where General Washington received all kinds of barrels of goods transported via the river. But this isn't your normal shipment. This is the fish hunter known as the Ichthyovenator. The Spinosaurid-type dinosaur makes its way onto land, leaving the fish-filled waters of Maryland and entering the state of Virginia. The Ichthyovenator, with its beautiful wave-like double-back sail, stomps into the trees that surround the estate and heads towards the fruit garden. Over at the lower gardens, the Pentaceratops continues devouring all kinds of low-lying vegetation. For the moment, everything remains peaceful. The ceratopsian, with its 4 column-like legs, begins walking slowly past the garden house and towards the bowling green. This spot of land is nothing but a field of fresh grass, a herbivore's dream. During the colonial times, this area of land would have symbolized immense wealth. Just imagine what it would have taken to keep this grass looking good. They used Therizinosaurus-like claws just to mow the grass. Now over in the woods, the Ichthyovenator passes by the new tomb of the former commander-in-chief. Oddly enough, the theropod almost seems to nod its 3-foot midline crested head in respect before letting out a mighty roar. As the bipedal piscivore passes through the last line of trees in the woods, it stomps towards the fruit garden and nursery. The 10-foot-tall Ichthyovenator enters this area filled with all kinds of seed-bearing fruits, everything from apples to peaches and grapes to strawberries. There's even cherry trees, and don't you know the old story about a young George Washington cutting down the cherry tree? Crush! The 4,800-pound Ichthyovenator just smashed a couple of gourdy pumpkins with its paddle-like feet, none of which were holding anything but seeds. Along with its good instincts of catching prey, the Ichthyovenator also has great eyesight, keen hearing, and a good sense of smell. And also, don't forget about their advanced brain for their body size. Now, back at the bowling green, the 15-foot-tall Pentaceratops raises its head from the grass and can now hear something in the distance. Its enormous neck frill is lifted high into the sky as its 5 horns cast a shadow on the ground below. The neck frill of this ceratopsian is nearly 6 feet tall and covered in all sorts of rounded bony knobs. At the top of its frill, it slopes down at the center, resembling the letter U, with 2 triangular horns pointing downward. The Pentaceratops can sense that danger is on its way, but this time not from a hammer and sickle. As the 34-foot-long bipedal carnivore leaves the fruit garden, it stomps past the chicken coops filled with all kinds of mini T-Rexes. It also passes the animal paddocks, which hold all kinds of Jurassic Park-like goats. And don't forget about Checkers, that black and white Cocker Spaniel. Now, further up the path, the Ichthyovenator continues stomping, this time past the lower gardens where the Pentaceratops once stood. Just a few more yards, and the Ichthyovenator makes its first steps onto the bowling green. The dinosaurs lock eyes for the very first time, just like their early days in Congress. Both dinosaurs stand in the middle of this grassy field, waiting for the first one to strike. If it wasn't for the neck frill of the Pentaceratops, both dinosaurs would measure about the same in height. Startled, the 23-foot-long Pentaceratops quickly brushes its 5-toed front left hoof against the ground and charges quickly towards the Ichthyovenator. Just like a rhinoceros charges at something when it feels threatened, the ceratopsians would have done something very similar. The Pentaceratops picks up speed up to 20 miles per hour as the Ichthyovenator's eyes widen in disbelief. Nothing has ever charged at this meat-eating dinosaur before. Quickly, the Ichthyovenator moves to its left as the Pentaceratops runs right past the theropod. The right brow horn of the Pentaceratops barely grazes the right leg of the carnivore. The Ichthyovenator spins around and stomps towards the Pentaceratops, who is charged up to some of the side houses near the 21-room mansion. As the Ichthyovenator runs up to the backside of the ceratopsian's body, the Pentaceratops spins around and reflects the meat-eater with its massive 8-foot skull and neck frill. The Ichthyovenator nearly escapes being hit with a horn under its chin. For a moment, both dinosaurs are back in a dead stare. But just like that, they begin circling around each other, waiting for the next revolutionary offensive. Who's going to cross the Delaware first? Again, the courageous Pentaceratops charges towards the Ichthyovenator, but again, the Ichthyovenator moves to its side, allowing the Pentaceratops to quickly pass by. This time, however, the Pentaceratops crashes its 8-foot head into the nearby smokehouse. Smoke begins to flutter out of the newly created door, and meat begins to fall from the rafters above. The smoke reminds them both of their days in World War II, but this isn't Nick's Burger Stand or the PT-109 disaster. The Pentaceratops pulls its 5-horned head out of the smokehouse and turns towards the Ichthyovenator. Again, the persistent ceratopsian charges back towards the Ichthyovenator, who is now stomped out of the bowling green and is now in front of the old storehouse and clerk's quarters. The Pentaceratops lowers its head and points its brow horns towards the Ichthyovenator as it picks up speed. The Ichthyovenator swiftly moves to the right and lunges at the neck of the ceratopsian with its long and narrow crocodilian-like snout. But the towering neck frill of the Pentaceratops is just too large. The Pentaceratops runs into the grass circle that sits directly in front of the colonial mansion. Frustrated, the Ichthyovenator chases the herbivore into the area. Quickly, the Pentaceratops spins around and digs its toe pads into the ground before it lifts its horns high into the sky. The Ichthyovenator again moves to the right side and sets its eyes on the body of the Pentaceratops, but the ceratopsian, in its defensive stance, turns its body with the Ichthyovenator to avoid an attack. Again, the dinosaurs are caught in a deadlock. No charges from the ceratopsian or bites from the ichthyovenator have been successful. The pentaceratops begins another charge. This time, it lowers its head and thrusts its nasal horn up into the left leg of the ichthyovenator. Boom! Did I jinx that or what? Instant contact is made, and the ichthyovenator roars into the sky above. The Spinosaur takes a couple steps backward near the mansion and almost stumbles to the ground as the Pentaceratops again brushes its left hoof against the pebble-like road. Charge! The Pentaceratops runs toward the injured meat-eater, but with all its power, the ichthyovenator avoids a brush with death and barely moves away from the mansion. The Pentaceratops crashes into the right side of the home and into the grandest space of the former president. Only the ceratopsian stiff tail sticks out from inside the mansion walls. Historical battle paintings and ceramic vases fall to the floor from this 2-story high space known as the New Room. The ichthyovenator buys some time and stumbles with its injured leg between the gardener's house and the servants' hall. Is the theropod on the run? Was that the ichthyovenator's last press conference? I mean battle? This can't be how this battle ends. The meat eater just can't throw in the towel and go and die out in the woods somewhere. The Pentaceratops regains its composure and shakes its head from left to right, knocking all kinds of plaster from its frill. Confused, the Pentaceratops looks towards the new exterior openings and doesn't see the ichthyovenator. Does it believe that this battle has been won? The Pentaceratops continues through the main level of the old mansion as it stomps through the front parlor room and then bursts out the back door under the piazza. The green grass fills the ceratopsian's eyesight with all sorts of excitement, just like the magnificent Potomac views did for the Washington family. The ceratopsian trots into the field for more and more vegetation. A little ways past the salt and spinning house, the ichthyovenator manages to stumble into the blacksmith shop. All kinds of iron hangs from the wooded walls and the rafters of this revolutionary building. As the ichthyovenator makes its way near the fire, it knows the finest steel has to go through the hottest fire, and the finest dinosaur has to beat the hottest dinosaur. As the ichthyovenator exits the blacksmith shop, it sees the Pentaceratops grazing in the open field of the east front of the mansion. The fight is all but over. The ichthyovenator roars into the sun that is now above the mansion. Startled, the Pentaceratops looks back in disbelief. The ichthyovenator begins charging towards the Pentaceratops at speeds up to 25 miles per hour. The Pentaceratops holds its ground and waits for impact. Again, the ichthyovenator moves towards the right side of the Pentaceratops' body, but this time the ichthyovenator reaches out with its robust left forearm and digs its 3-fingered claws across the frill of the Pentaceratops. Instantly, the Pentaceratops roars into the sky and charges towards the ichthyovenator. The meat eater shuffles to the right, and the ceratopsian storms back under the piazza, knocking down one of the columns holding up the roof before going into the mansion. The ichthyovenator follows the herbivore into the house, which is now doomed for destruction. Inside the central passage of the mansion, the Pentaceratops spins around only to meet the ichthyovenator, who lowers its head and tackles the ceratopsian into the staircase. The spindles in the banister fall to the floor like a line of redcoats, dominoes. The ichthyovenator tries to slam its crocodilian-like snout down over the body of the ceratopsian, but the Pentaceratops throws its head back, swiping the carnivore with its bony knobs that surround its neck frill. The knobs scratch against the ribs of the ichthyovenator. The Pentaceratops gets back onto its feet before it runs into the dining room of the mansion. Inside the dining room, the Pentaceratops spins around and instantly crushes the dining room table with all kinds of fancy blue and white porcelain fine china. As the Ichthyovenator enters the room, the Pentaceratops instantly charges at the Spinosaurid, and they both go through the fireplace wall and into the study of General George Washington. Wait! No one was invited into this room! Both dinosaurs stumble back onto their feet as books begin to fall to the floor, sending old colonial pages scattering all throughout the room, just like confetti from a prehistoric pep rally. Each dinosaur storms out of the study and stomps towards one of the exterior doors of the mansion. On the way outside and back into the west front of the mansion, the Pentaceratops trips, causing both dinosaurs to fall to the ground near the kitchen house. The Pentaceratops rolls through the yard and hits against the side of the kitchen door. Pots and pans can be heard falling to the floor inside. As the Ichthyovenator slowly gets back up due to its previously injured leg, it gets a burst of energy after shaking its double sail into the air. The Ichthyovenator roars into the sky and rushes towards the Pentaceratops. The meat-eater quickly snaps at the body of the fallen Pentaceratops with its 80 conical-like teeth, but the bite force of this carnivore is nothing like the T-Rex. Its jaws might snap quicker, but it's just not as strong. The ceratopsian groans into the air above and sees a flock of Synopterus overhead. Go away, you vultures! Quickly, the Pentaceratops pushes back with its huge neck frill and gets back into its quadrupedal stance and begins to run down the south lane of the property. The Ichthyovenator is now on the hunt for a retreating herbivore. The fast-hunting Ichthyovenator runs alongside the four-legged herbivore and uses its head to push it into the exterior walls of the kitchen. More fine china can be heard falling from inside the building. Simultaneously, the Pentaceratops pushes off the kitchen walls and lifts its brow horn towards the Ichthyovenator. The right brow horn glides across the body of the meat-eater, dealing another blow to this carnivore. Both dinosaurs have taken big hits to their bodies. It's just like the Bay of Pigs invasion or the Watergate scandal. How much longer can this battle really last? As the Ichthyovenator roars into the sky, the Pentaceratops has just enough time to stumble all the way past the kitchen and past the now inflamed smokehouse. The Pentaceratops continues limping throughout the estate, passing the wash house, the coach house, and the stables. That leads me to ask, who would grab a saddle and ride a four-legged ceratopsian? I sure would. Just call me a prehistoric cowboy. Howdy! Anyways, as the Pentaceratops notices the Ichthyovenator following not too far behind, it takes a left at the dung repository and heads towards the ice house. The dung was used to make all kinds of compost to help fertilize the nearby gardens and orchards. It smells just like the Battle of Cowpens. Hold the lines! Hold the lines! Injured and exhausted, the Ichthyovenator continues with its instincts of being a hunter. The theropod stomps closer and closer towards the wounded ceratopsian. As the Ichthyovenator draws closer to the now still Pentaceratops, it picks up speed and charges towards the herbivore. Just like before, the Ichthyovenator swings to the right side of the Pentaceratops and reaches down with its crocodilian-like snout, striking the left side of the ceratopsian's body. But simultaneously, the Pentaceratops knocks its neck frill and brow horns backwards and uses the Ichthyovenator's own speed to lift it off the ground, just like the Apollo 11 missions to the moon. The Ichthyovenator crashes right into the ice house. Wood boards are thrown everywhere, and the Ichthyovenator now rests on a pile of ice. Like before, the Pentaceratops continues towards the Potomac River and into the wooded areas that surround the old tomb. With no sound coming from the ice house, the Ichthyovenator might be down for the count. Start the count, ref! 1, 2, 3, 4. What was that? It sounded like something coming from the river. Could it be? No, it can't be. Can it? Was that the Spinosaurus? But wasn't the Spinosaurus beaten by the T-Rex in the very first prehistoric cage match? That's right, but then we heard the Spinosaurus awaken inside the haunted fossil yard mausoleum in the 5th prehistoric cage match. And then we heard it eating seafood deep inside the Bubba Gump shrimp restaurant during the 6th prehistoric cage match. Could the Spinosaurus really be here at Mount Vernon? Shaken, the Ichthyovenator opens its green eyes and shakes its double sail as it gets back onto its feet after hearing the roars of a Spinosaurid family member. A roar and an ice bath is all this dinosaur needed to help get back onto its paddle-like feet and get back to business since day one-ish. A few trace fossils ahead, the Pentaceratops reaches the old tomb and steps on the cobblestone bricks that surround the old wooden door. The Ceratopsian can hear the sounds of the theropods roar in the distance. It's time for one final stand, one final conflict, and one final rebuttal. Which dinosaur will become victorious? It's almost time to drop the balloons on this one. As the Ichthyovenator reaches the old tomb, it sees the wounded Pentaceratops standing strong near the wooden door. Both dinosaurs are locked in a dead stare. The Ichthyovenator begins to drool from its mouth as each dinosaur awaits for someone to make what could be the last move. With one last bit of strength, the Pentaceratops waits no longer and charges towards the Ichthyovenator. The Ceratopsian swings its horns at the meat eater. Its right brow horn barely slides across the body of the Ichthyovenator, but it still does damage. At the same time, the Ichthyovenator swings its left arm towards the body of the Pentaceratops and strikes it with its spear-like thumb claw. The weak left leg of the Pentaceratops buckles and falls to the ground. The Ichthyovenator bites down on the upper frill of the Pentaceratops, only to be met with a hard and bony frill. It attempts to thrash the frill around, but no such luck. The Pentaceratops swings its head up and slices the Ichthyovenator in the stomach with its nasal horn. The Ichthyovenator roars up into the sky before swiping the Pentaceratops across the face with its three-fingered claws. The left eye of the Pentaceratops is severely wounded. The Ichthyovenator lowers its head and pushes into the body of the Pentaceratops, sending it back towards the door of the old tomb. As the Ichthyovenator pushes the Ceratopsian into the door, it pierces the Pentaceratops with its 12-inch thumb claws behind the herbivore's neck frill. Boom! The Pentaceratops falls to the side and is leaning up against the front side of the old tomb. As the Ichthyovenator lifts its head, it roars into the sky before biting the back of the Pentaceratops. It locks its 80 conical-like teeth into the Pentaceratops and deals a massive blow to the Ceratopsian, just like the Cuban Missile Crisis. With one last motion of life, the Pentaceratops uses all of its strength to lift itself back onto its front right leg. The Pentaceratops lets out one last roar towards the Ichthyovenator, and then in one swift motion, the Ichthyovenator quickly spins around and uses its eel-like tail to whip across the body of the Pentaceratops, sending it crashing through the front door of the old tomb. The ceiling of the tomb caves in and bricks crumble down over the Pentaceratops. This Ceratopsian is down for the count. The Ichthyovenator lifts its arms back into the air with its V's for victory and roars into the sky. Here's to the Ichthyovenator, now more than ever. And now for your Dinosaur Review for Kids prehistoric cage match highlights. The results are in, and the dinosaurs of Isla Nublar have spoken, or should I say roared. This electoral battle between a theropod and a ceratopsian was definitely a matchup for the ages. Both dinosaurs had multiple chances to become victorious throughout this ultimate who would win battle. It was the Pentaceratops who took the early lead in this contest. The ceratopsian struck the theropod multiple times with its 5-horned face. But as the matchup continued, the ichthyovenator would slowly start to chip away at the momentum of the Pentaceratops, causing the battle to even out. As things turned into the mansion, the Pentaceratops seemed to be on the retreat. Run, Penta, run! And the ichthyovenator continued to chip away at the Pentaceratops. But when the battle arrived at the ice house, things almost seemed to turn back into the Pentaceratops' favor. Had the ceratopsian struck the theropod with its brow horns as it lifted up the ichthyovenator into the air, this definitely would have been a different ending. Now, when we entered the old tomb and both dinosaurs stood exhausted, it was still almost anyone's game. This time, the battle came down to stamina. These dinosaurs, who were comparable in height, had been all over the Mount Vernon estate. Now, as soon as the Pentaceratops was pushed up against the old tomb, its days were doomed, just like the KPG extinction. The numbers were in, and the verdict wasn't good. 2 thumb claws, a backbite, and a tail whip from the ichthyovenator, and the Pentaceratops was down for the count. It was the silent majority and a peace with victory candidate who prevailed in the end. And your 7th Dinosauria champion of the world, the fish hunter, the ichthyovenator. Now that was one prehistoric election. What did you guys think about this dinosaur battle? Wasn't it just awesome? This matchup was truly one of the most historic dinosaur battle combinations. I don't think any other dinosaur families are seen fighting more than the theropods versus the ceratopsians. It was truly so awesome to write, record, and edit. The ichthyovenator is now the first ever dinosaur president of Isla Nublar. Now, thank you to the Mount Vernon estate for giving us such a beautiful backdrop for our 7th prehistoric cage match. And I also wanted to give out a very, very special shout out to my oldest daughter and junior dinosaur ranger, Cecilia. This morning I dropped her off at the airport and she flew out on her school trip out to Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. And on Thursday, she'll even be visiting the Mount Vernon estate. So Cecilia, I hope you have tons of fun and have the time of your life, and I can't wait to see you on Friday. Now remember, I'll be off from now until about August 30th, 2023. I've got 2 to 5 live events almost every single day from June 1st to August 4th. It's going to be such a wild summer. I'm also thinking about making some updates to our podcast format. Now the reviews will definitely stay the same, but maybe some new segments before and after each prehistoric review. But hey, let's have a little sneak peek into season number 8, shall we? I already have all 9 prehistoric creatures selected to review this fall. Do you want to know who they are? Well, here we go. We've got the duck-billed Ouranosaurus, the nasal boss Pachyrhinoceros, the prehistoric sea turtle, the Archelon, 2 Permian period creatures, the Dimetrodon and the Scutosaurus, a long-necked Nigersaurus, a Stegosaurus, the Miragaia, and either a Baryonyx or the Carcharodontosaurus. I'm just not sure which theropod to pick. Which one do you guys want to see reviewed next season? And I might also kick one of these creatures out for a pterosaur as well. Now, I think something interesting is going on behind the scenes during my prehistoric cage match episodes. I've heard a rumor that the Spinosaurus aegypticus is up to something fishy. We've now heard its roar over the last 3 prehistoric cage match episodes. When is it going to show its crocodilian-like face to the entire world? And I bet we'll hear it again soon. Now also, before we go, I wanted to leave everyone with a special quote. It's one of my absolute favorites of all time, and it was even said by the 37th President, Richard Nixon. And it goes something like this. Only if you've been to the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain. Well, until next season, everybody, my name is Dinosaur Ranger Anthony, your Walter Cronkite-like broadcaster and host for today's Prehistoric Cage Match. And as always, keep digging for dinosaurs.
Wow!